We wonder why things are so screwed up. We elect these people, we send them to Washington, and they sell out for the cash. They're just not representing me. Perhaps if you believe in freedom, you too. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. I'm your host, David Penn. Glad you're with us again for episode number 196, coming to you on this Thursday night, April 10th, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, which I call Pushback and Pause. We are going to continue with our review and how should we say it? A deconstruction of what's going on with this tariff and trade issue, which is just such a massive change in global history, I guess we'd have to put it. Before I start, I'm going to listen to Dan Schultz, who is the progenitor of precinct strategy. I'm going to make a statement up front, like you are the jury, and I am trying to argue a case in front of you. If we don't get involved in self-governance, if we don't enter the Republican Party and fill the 200,000 empty billets and bring the American citizens movement into prominence, into, I don't like to use the word control, but shall I say majority rule in the Republican Party, I believe we're going to lose our freedom. And why I say that is, well, let's just go along tonight and look at the pushback against President Trump. I'm going to say again, we the citizens of this country, if we believe in having a republic, if we believe in having a nation state, if we believe in having a sovereign state, if we believe in the philosophy of republicanism that makes each one of us the sovereign of our own lives, if we believe in protecting minority rights, if we believe in anti-corruption, if we believe in these things, let our belief motivate us to action. Action by getting involved. I'm running for the chair of the CD3, the Congressional District 3 here in Minnesota. That is the center of the Uni Party here in Minnesota, Congressional District 3. I'm going to give it my best shot on any given Sunday. We don't know who's going to win or lose. The apparatus, of course, is arrayed against me, as we're going to talk about tonight. But I'm doing my part. I'm showing the way. And I'm going to tell you, just so you know, I don't have political ambitions. I don't have podcasting ambitions. I don't have entertainer ambitions. My ambition is for the freedom of my children, and I'm doing everything I can to be sure that they have a world where they can be the way they choose to be, is guaranteed to them by a creator who granted them unalienable rights. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm asking you to do it with me. I'm asking you to go join your party, to join your political movement in your backyard, meet people, convince your friends, convince your neighbors, convince your coworkers, your children to do the same. And if we, as a mighty wave, flow into this party, well, that's never happened before. So I can't predict the outcome. But it certainly is going to be better than the globalism that the collaborator RINOs have every intention of serving up to us as they work to push back against President Trump's agenda. Let's play number one, please.
Each week, American History TV's Real America brings you archival films that help tell the story of the 20th century.
And let our republicanism, so focused and so dedicated, not be made fuzzy and futile by unthinking and stupid labels. I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
That was Senator Barry Goldwater at the 1964 Republican National Convention talking about labels. Uh, the brand of republicanism that Senator Goldwater was promoting was the original kind, the kind that is being rebirthed here today in our generation, in our time. And, he was being labeled as an extremist by the New York Nelson Rockefeller globalist wing of the party. And Senator Goldwater went down to a terrible defeat to Lyndon Johnson. And that was really the end for many decades of a true Republican kind of politics in the Republican Party. That kind of settled the argument. And we went into this kind of globalist malaise, which has lasted to this very day. Of course, we have elected a new Republican Party behind Donald Trump. And of course, just as the globalist wing of the Republican Party uh, really buried republicanism with Goldwater in 1964, they're going to work to, well, shall we say, I don't like to use the word bury because it's a little bit too, it's a little bit too intense, but they're certainly working to defeat President Trump. And I'm not talking about the Democrats. I'm talking about the Republicans. Let's listen to this clip that's called a Gasparino, please. It's the second on the page.
Well, I mean, because of the mixed messaging, how can you doubt them? I mean, let's be clear what happened. Who capitulated here and why? And I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources. And the reason why is because of the bond market and what happened last night. Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down. When you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan. While he was negotiating with Japan, according to my sources, who are running major money management firms that are involved in the bond market without giving up names, Japan was dumping bonds because they believed this was not a great place to do business. That forced their hands. Now, what you can say, I think, legitimately here, is Trump decided to take the win. And here's why. There was overwhelmingly, deal potential here among the entire world, except for maybe China, right? Everybody really wanted something. So he did take the win, but make no mistake about it. Peter Navarro was talking as of yesterday about not taking the win, and now they did. And it's all because of the bond market. I want to point out.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than just the bond market. But what did happen yesterday, as I'm sure you know, is President Trump paused the very onerous reciprocal tariffs ranging as high as 49% on Cambodia, 46% on Vietnam, 36% on Thailand. And what he left in place was over 100% tariff on China and 10% on all goods coming into the country effective very soon, 10%. So there's all this warp and woof going on, and people are saying he blinked. You know what is this is my perspective on it. First of all, the Overton window of what we're talking about is wrong. The media is leading us into a conversation that keeps us away from the real issue. So we're going to come back to that in just a moment. Let me say it again. We're not talking about the real thing. We're talking about a fake thing because if we really talked about the real thing, that could really lead to some change. But what President Trump is doing, and I've been saying this consistently, he's conditioning the market for a massive change in the way political economy works. And people are saying he blinked. And, he's blinked many times. And you know what? When you're in a fight and someone's punching you in the face, you're going to blink. He's fighting to change a globalization system, which is so baked into the cake that we Republicans think it's the truth. Because those of us that were born in the 50s, there aren't that many of us that are active that were born in the 40s. Certainly not in the 30s. When we were born, globalism was already well established. It's like mother's milk for us. We don't remember what it is to be a republic. We live, and we're told constantly, in a democracy. That's the real issue. But President Trump, in seeking to change this, has to condition the money, because the money has a vote. In fact, on the bottom of my emails, good morning, Tanner.
Good morning.
You've gotten emails from me, and it says at the bottom, we vote with our money every day.
Yeah.
Right. We vote with our money every day. Here's a great vote. You need tires? Go to TireGet. Very simple. You can buy tires from anyone. Why not buy them from Target.com and support Free People Radio? Got to buy T-shirts, coffee mugs. See, you vote with your money. You vote with your money. Your money matters. And we're just regular, everyday people. The money I'm talking about that's voting is in the trillions of dollars. So this whole period of time since President Trump was inaugurated, we've been moving towards a different kind of organization of political economy. And he went after the border first with a 25% on Canada and Mexico. Then he paused it. And now it's come out that Canada and Mexico will export to the United States under the United States Canada-Mexico Free Trade Agreement. I think it's called the USMCA, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Okay, but if it's a non-compliant good, if it doesn't have the content that qualifies it for duty-free entry, it's 25 points. Steel and aluminum, 25 points from wherever it comes from. Automobiles and automobile parts, 25% from wherever it comes from. All imports, 10% from wherever it comes from. The tariff and duty income that accrued to the United States government in 2024 was about $65 billion. I'm going to estimate that President Trump is up to about $500 billion, and we have a pause for 90 days. We don't know what's going to happen in 90 days. In fact, the supply chain, of which your host is a participant in, we're not quite sure what's happening right now because this change is so intense. There's something called the United States Customs and Border Protection, USCBP. They're the people that do the customs entries when I import. And why do I have to import? It's not that I want to. 75% of the tires that we sell on TireGet to you are imported because only 25% of the tires are actually made here. Did you hear what I said? Only 25% of the tires that go on the vehicles in your garage or parked out in front of your house or apartment, only 25% of those tires are made in the United States. We're down to 25% of the tires. How would you like to get up in the morning and you need tires and there's no tires? Okay, that's where we're at. And it's not just the tire business, it's every industry. So, what people are doing, what they're focusing us on, and what we're going to see in many clips that we're going to play going forward and talking about, what they are focusing us on is materialism, the money associated with tariffs. Oh, the consumers, the supply chain, the U.S. manufacturers. They want everyone focused on the money because they are materialists. This is not about money. This is about freedom. Oh boy, why don't we talk? Where are the Republicans stepping up to back up President Trump with the concept of Liberation Day? Is not liberation indicative of freedom? Doesn't that isn't that what that means?
Yeah,
Lib
liberty. Yeah, liberation is to be freed.
Yeah. What happened to that? Why are we talking about how much a woofy wazzer costs at Walmart? Because as long as we stay focused on the money, as long as we stay focused on materialism, we will forget and give up the freedom which is our birthright as American citizens. That's why everything is about the cash. Let's listen to number 2 from Commerce Secretary Lutnick.
You've got to realize this is a national security issue. I mean, we don't make medicine in this country anymore. We don't make ships. We don't have enough steel and aluminum to fight a battle, right? All our semiconductors are made overseas, so every button we press when we try to start our car or even use our microwave, these are all semiconductors. They're all made elsewhere. We've got to start to protect ourselves, and we've got to stop having all the countries of the world ripping us off. We have a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, and the rest of the world has a surplus with us. They're earning our money. They're taking our money.
Right.
And Donald Trump has seen this, and he's going to stop it. So it is going to be a big change. Of course it's going to be a big change, but the rest of the world has been ripping us off for all these many years. Donald Trump has seen it. He's spoken about it.
I understand
and he's just
that,
not going to take it anymore, and that's his model.
Okay. How can we be free if we're not independent? If we cannot provide as a community the things that we need from within our community, at least to some larger extent, we've given up our freedom. Our sovereignty is related to our economic self governance. That's the whole scam of free trade. It's the Trojan horse of global government. Let us all participate in the prosperity of free trade. That worked for the United States for 30 years. It's our idea. Our politicians came up with it to exploit the world. It's called neo-colonialism. Neo-colonialism. We took over the British Empire and continued its awful business model of debt slavery, drugs, and piracy, the endless war to defend democracy. You know, the other people in the world have a vote. They don't like that. They've been fighting back. They have learned from us. They have organized their own counter globalism, or it's not even, they want to take over. It's like the five families of the mafia. Go what? You didn't watch The Godfather.
I saw you whip your head around.
Yeah, you didn't do it, did you?
No.
Yeah. You know, The Godfather, my good friend Thomas the Good told me many years ago, The Godfather has everything in it a man needs to live his life. And in The Godfather, the families have a fight. And, you know, they just do it about every 10 or 15 years to get rid of the bad blood. Well, in the life of nations, which is a much bigger system, maybe it's every 100 years is the cycle. And we're in what's called now the fourth turning, where there's no morality, there's no right or wrong. Everybody's just robbing and stealing and doing whatever they want to do. And I made the comment it started sexually, because if anything goes, hey, guess what? Anything goes. If you can do anything sexually, you can do anything on anything. Anything goes. Anything goes. And what's going right now is the United States is going down the tubes. And we don't recognize that. And yes, the bond issue was critical. The money is critical. The money has a life of its own. And the money was saying, President Trump, if you continue to advance this concept of reciprocal tariffs, the world's going to get plunged into economic nightmare because the money can vote against President Trump. And why does it do that? Because the money is a global system run by the central banks. That's what it is. That's what it is. President Trump is fighting the entire system. Now, I have friends that see that President Trump might not get this done. He might not even be in their estimation, the authentic Trump that I'm hoping that he is. But I'm taking one step at a time. I'm fighting the fight that's right in front of me. What do I have to do today? And right now, today, President Trump is changing a globalized system which is draining the wealth from every one of us except the 1% elite. And it is making us economically dependent on our trading partners. It is eroding the concept of independence as it is intended to do. It is intended to create one world economy which subordinates the United States of America to one world government, and that government is faithless and so far from my neighborhood, it couldn't care less about what we are concerned about here in CD3. It is an anathema and the reversal of the Constitution of the United States of America. And then what must ask themselves, how, oh, how could this ever happen to our wonderful, beautiful country? And I'm going to tell you how. Let's just please play number 4.
I know you are introducing companion legislation to what Senator Cantwell just laid out for us. But as I understand it, in the House, Republican leaders have already restricted the ability to rein in changes to the Mexico, Canada, and China tariffs. They tucked language into the continuing resolution. Does that get in your way when you are trying to now claw back some congressional control of tariffs?
Well, first of all, good morning, Margaret. Thanks for having me on. And I enjoyed listening to Senator Cantwell. I support the legislation that Senator Grassley, Senator Cantwell, we have a total of 7 Republicans in the Senate. And I have some beginning support on the House side, which we'll unveil tomorrow. It will be harder to pass this in the House, no doubt. I think if we get 60 votes in the Senate, they'll put pressure on the House to look at this. And if we continue to see the stock market go a certain direction, or if we see inflation or unemployment shift in a bad way, I think then this bill becomes a very viable bill. So it will not pass tomorrow or maybe in the next couple of weeks, but this will be in the queue that we can use. And it's time that Congress restores its authorities here. In the Constitution, it's clear. The House and the Senate, Congress has the power of tariffs and taxes, and we gave some of that power to the executive branch. And I think in hindsight, that was a mistake.
That is Representative Bacon of Nebraska. He's a Republican.
Don Bacon.
Don Bacon.
That's such a joke of it. I don't mean to judge the guy's name, but that sounds like a character.
A
Don
caricature.
Bacon.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, he is. Don Bacon, Rhino extraordinaire. He's leading right now. He's the poster child of globalism. This represents the Republican Party. Right here in CD3, where I am going to run for chair, the majority of CD3 apparatus participants, the people in the party, up until this point, are aligned with Don Bacon. We're not done with him. He's Mr. Joe Ukraine also. So my point here is, this is the Republican Party. So the very distinction, Republican and Democrat, has become meaningless. It's really about who believes in globalism and who is willing to advance the cause of American sovereignty, of America as a nation state, as a republic. Let's listen to one more from Mr. Bacon, number 6, please.
It is surprising to me, or perhaps it shouldn't be, that the business community is so silent right now. As Senator Cantwell said, she said they're afraid. But there is a conservative group, the New Civil Liberties Alliance, that filed suit to challenge these tariffs in court. Do you think it is the courts where this ultimately gets settled?
I think ultimately it's in Congress once we see enough of this, but maybe the courts as well. The Constitution makes it very clear. Congress has control of taxes. And by the way, and let's be candid, tariffs are a tax. But they also mentions tariffs in the Constitution. And we gave the president emergency powers. So the courts will have to decide as what just happened. Is this emergency powers, or is this a total change in tariff policy? And I think it's really the latter. This is where Congress has to step in and say, do we really want to create this new policy on tariffs? If it is, it should come from the Congress and not the president.
So there we have Representative Bacon talking about a lawsuit. You see, we've got a full-blown battle here now in our country, not between Democrats and Republicans, but between globalism and maintaining a sovereign nation. And what does sovereignty mean? It means freedom. Freedom. Man, we should all go watch Braveheart, where William Wallace screams out, is willing to die for his freedom. Man, we can't even put up with the increase in the price of a woofy wowzer. That's how beat down we are. These people are awakening the sleeping giant, and it's your and my job to make sure that this awakening process intensifies. Please repost the links. You've been doing a great job of it. Thank you so much. The podcast is growing very quickly now. The audience is growing quickly. We need to push as the American people, because these people that we elect, look at who they are. They're not representing us. They're representing global capital. That's who Don Bacon works for. Doesn't work for we the people. And he references a lawsuit that was filed by a nonprofit civil rights group. That organization is called the New Civil Liberties Alliance. Well, that sounds very nice, doesn't it? Guess who funds this alliance? Guess who these people are? They're Republicans. Yes, they are. In name only. That's why we call them RINOs. It's actually funded by Charles Koch, who is one of the biggest billionaire donors to RINO Republicans in this country. This would be a great place to add that clip of Representative Tom Emmer supporting national popular vote.
I've had the argument made to me, Tom, as a conservative, why would you ever want to support something like national popular vote?
You know, they handed me a book, and I said to the gentleman that had come in to pitch it, why would I ever support this? I mean, are you crazy? Well, it's funny. I went and read the book and became an absolute believer. I get conservatives who say to me, well, why do you want to eliminate the Electoral College? And I have to tell them, this is why you need to read the book.
Article 2, Section 1, it is constitutional. We're not changing the Constitution. If you respect states' rights, if you truly do believe in them, then you respect the states' rights to determine however they want to award their electors. I believe in the Republican message of smaller government, individual liberty, and economic freedom. And if conservatives believe that, then they should support national popular vote.
We wonder why things are so screwed up. And that's because we elect these people, we send them to Washington, and they sell out for the cash. They're just not representing me. And perhaps if you believe in freedom, you too. Now, let's see who these folks are aligned with. Could you please play number 8?
Senator, you heard the Senate whip talk about your effort to claw back some control over trade. He said it will have a thorough hearing and we'll see where it goes from there. Do you have any indication of momentum among some of your Republican colleagues?
Well, the first day of introduction, we signed up 7 Republicans. So usually you don't get
Can you stop it, please?
And get so many people.
This is a Democrat Senator, Maria Cantwell from Washington. You can't get more globalist than Washington. I'm not going to say leftist, I'm going to say globalist. And she's talking about the first day she proposed a bill to claw back from President Trump his trade authority, 7 Republican senators, you know, the usual suspects, Tom Tillis, Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, you know, these kind of, Jerry Moran, these kind of people that are in Congress because we the people would rather watch football than practice self-governance. We'd rather go on down to the mall and spend money, you know, have a Burger King Whopper. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I wish I could do it. But I know what these people are up to, and what they're up to is taking away my freedom. I'm just not going to let them do it without a fight. Let's continue with Senator Maria Cantwell.
I think it shows the anxiety that people have. I'm sure if they listen to their constituents, consumer challenges are already starting to surface. And certainly the stock market's impact on retirement income is shaking a lot of people. So I'm sure
Stop again. So let me just share with you, because you're going to pay a little bit more, because the market goes up and down, we're going to freak out uh, about a decline in our 401k. We're going to cave now. We're going to cave. What these people want to do is claw back the presidential authority on trade and make sure that globalism continues, because you know what? When you go down to buy the GI Joe with the Kung Fu grip once a year, it needs to cost $5.99 instead of $8.99. And for that sole reason, we're going to give up our republic. That's why I say the argument that they're making has nothing to do with what President Trump is trying to do. They're making it about something it isn't, because they know that people really don't take the time to delve into this. Even participants in the Republican Party who will be voting on my candidacy in CD3 really are not up on what is going on here. Let's continue.
Colleagues will hear from them. Today, consumer groups are announcing, and retailers, the fact that they want Congress to take this action up. And so I think we're hearing from a big segment of the economy. The consumer spending is a big part of GDP, and they're worried.
So you've got, what, 6 Republicans at this point?
7.
7. And now you're saying retailers, like you have CEOs who are on board, or industry groups?
Industry groups like the Retailers Association, the outdoor industry, the consumer electronics groups, Main Street Alliance, organizations who know their bread and butter comes from consumer spending, which is a big part of our economy. And so they are very anxious about a plan. Listen, I listened to your segment. I've never heard so much about fuzzy math in my life. And the notion that that chart is getting so much national attention, you know, the letters in Greek, all this stuff that makes no sense. That's what consumers are saying. How is this helping me in a time of inflation? You're adding to my cost with a tax on my consumer goods. And so I think that's why we're gaining support from these organizations today.
I have to say, I seldom have intense feelings, just age and a lot of meditation over the course of my lifetime, because when I was younger, I liked to fight. And I know I don't look that way right now, but hey, you know what? I'm pretty long in the tooth. So what I was like in my 20s and what I'm like in my 60s, I'm almost like two different people. But I really have a strong, visceral reaction about this, because I'm being reduced to inventory. If you listen carefully and go back and listen to what she said, it's all about consumers are just inventory to be monetized. And if we have to pay a little bit more for things, there's going to be less spending to monetize. So they're willing to trade away the sovereignty of our country so that people can spend just a little bit more. In the last podcast, we saw that the most leftist economists had forecasted that this entire program, when the reciprocal tariffs were coming on in the 30s and 40%, could cause a 0.6% decline in our GDP. So this really is not about money. This is about the globalist system of free trade, which is the Trojan horse leading to one world government. And as long as we stay focused on that with our friends and our neighbors, our children, our co-workers, and don't let them reduce this to an economic argument, because from the purpose of economy, let me tell you, I'm in the supply chain. The best thing that can happen to the supply chain, if we want to be honest about it, which of course they aren't, is price increases are great for everybody in business. I hope the price goes up 30%, because if my margins stay the same, I'll have 30% more profit. Let me say it again, because if you don't own a business, this is maybe going to be a strange idea. If the president puts a 10% tax on all goods coming in the country, which he is doing and which will be in effect at 12:01 a.m. on May 27th. From that moment forward, everything that comes in is going to get a 10% tax, unless it's covered on something else like steel and aluminum. That's 25. Not only will the United States General Fund receive an additional about $400 billion a year in taxes from that 10%, but all the tires that I'm bringing in to sell you on TireGet are going to cost 10% more. My margin is going to stay the same. I'm not going to gouge you. But I have 10% more profit because the base price went up 10%. The entire supply chain is overjoyed about this. Overjoyed. It's saving Main Street from Wall Street because they've had the borders open since Biden got elected in 2020, and the country has been flooded not just with newcomers, but with products from all over the world on a free trade regime with no entry tax, 2.5%, which I would consider de minimis. And when there's too much supply, the price goes down and it puts out of business people like tonight's host, David Penn. We cannot survive when there's this kind of oversupply. So President Trump's putting a wedge in so your friends and neighbors can stay in business. In other words, she's either stupid or evil. I do not care. I don't know this particular woman's history. I didn't look it up. But if she is a businesswoman, she's lying because everybody in business is overjoyed that the price is going to go up. They're just not telling you the truth. Now, who speaks out? People like Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman is a very, very famous hedge fund manager. He's the progenitor and the manager of the Pershing Square Capital Fund. And he came out and urged the president to stop. And he said, quote, "There is still time for a ceasefire before millions of people get hurt." I don't consider keeping my freedom getting hurt. And I don't consider prices going up a little bit getting hurt. Mr. Ackman would get hurt because the globalist system he's invested in is getting busted up, which means he might have to do some work to make money in the future because change requires work. These people don't want to change because it's working for them, but not for me and you. That's really what's going on here. The people that got the system rigged since Barry Goldwater was defeated by Lyndon Johnson in 1964, this group of Republicans, the globalists, who call themselves Republicans, who went in collaboration with the globalists that call themselves Democrats, which we call the two of these groups together the Uni Party, they've rigged the system so that globalism prevails, so that money transfers for you and me to their benefactors, the top 1/10 of 1%, and we get poorer and poorer and work harder and harder and have less and less. We become demoralized. Demoralized. It's not just on the work part. They sexually demoralized us. Demoralized us. People don't go to church anymore. People think anything goes. Gambling is legal. Drugs are legal. It's the British business model, and the people we elect are willing to preserve this model like Amy Klobuchar with smiles on their face. Let's listen to a little bit more pushback, number 11, please.
On the world leaders reacting to the Trump tariff plan, Canada and Australia have now strongly reacted to President Trump's recent tariff measures, which they argue will negatively impact their economies. Now, Canada's response emphasizes that tariffs will directly affect millions of Canadians, and the government plans to counter them with protective measures to safeguard the workers. Canada also acknowledges the fact that economy's consequences for the U.S. as well. predicting that the measures will harm the United States of American economy over time. Australia has also criticized the tariffs, calling them unwarranted and contrary to the long-standing partnership between the two nations. The Australian government has now also argued that Trump's decision adds uncertainty to the global economy and will raise costs for American households. Both the countries are now prepared to challenge these unilateral actions and stand firm against the tariffs. Let's listen in to the reactions.
President Trump has just announced a series of measures that are going to fundamentally change the international trading system. Now, in doing so, he has preserved a number of important elements of our relationship, the commercial relationship between Canada and the United States. So we're in a situation where there is going to be an impact on the U.S. economy, which will build with time. In our judgment, it will be negative on the U.S. economy. That will have an impact on us. But the series of measures will directly affect millions of Canadians. We are going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures in a crisis. It's important to come together, and it's essential to act with purpose and with force. And that's what we will do.
The unilateral action that the Trump administration has taken today against every nation in the world does not come as a surprise. For Australia, these tariffs are not unexpected, but let me be clear, they are totally unwarranted. President Trump referred to reciprocal tariffs. A reciprocal tariff would be 0, not 10%. The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations' partnership. This is not the act of a friend.
That's good. Thank you very much. CNN, the most trusted name in news, highlights two countries' leaders who are part of the British Commonwealth. Mark Carney is the unelected leader of Canada, Albanese, Australia. These countries are aligned with the crown. I think President Trump is onto something here. These people are not our friends. We got divorced from them in 1776. And like a lot of bad marriages, they came back in 1812 and slapped us around and burnt the White House. Yes, they have been working to undermine the sovereignty of the nation, the Republic of the United States of America, since the founders of this country declared independence on July 4th, 1776. Hey, there's 195 podcasts about this if you're just tuning in for the first time. And what happens in the local levels? Well, I read my local communist newspaper, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and it's putting up a lot of information about what's going to happen to Minnesota. We have a border with Canada. We have a big trading relationship with Canada. We are an ag export state. So, we're a little iffy here, even on the Republican side of the equation about this. Everybody's wearing their MAGA hats and waving their Israeli flags. But when it comes down to it, these are Mike Pence, Nikki Haley Republicans. And why do I know that? Because it was on the website. Adam Schwartzy, Julia Coleman, Kristen Robbins. You people didn't support President Trump, and you still don't support him. You're just hiding, waiting for it to all blow by so you can reestablish your support of globalism. Globalism, one world government, one world economy, one world currency. Now, maybe you're hearing me, and Republicans really don't like when I criticize them. You're not Republicans. You are purveyors of the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. That's why we have a contention in the Republican Party in this state and every state about what it is to be a Republican. And if we don't get you motivated to go into your local party and become a member and bring the citizens into the party and root out these awful globalists like Bacon in Nebraska, I'll spare the Minnesotans just because, hey, you know what? I'm seeking unity. we don't do it, these people are going to prevail. They're in the process now of pushing back against President Trump. He had a pause. The bond market was part of it, but the bigger part of it, in my opinion, is they're trying to take his authority away. So he had a pause and allow this to develop step by step. And again, there is now a 25% tax on aluminum and steel, a 25% tax on automobiles and automobile parts. There will be a tax on pharma. There will be a tax on semiconductors. These four sectors have broad bipartisan support for tariff protection. They will always be protected because guess what? Those union members in Michigan, the UAW, those people will fight any politician who stands up against the auto industry now and in the future. I remember, in the tire business, the union workers in the tire factories here in the United States, which I've really been contending with since the 90s. And when I say contending, I really objected to these people. That's the USW, United Steelworkers. I remember there was a strike in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was a factory owned by Uniral Goodrich. It's back in the 90s. And I couldn't find out what was going on. And I was buying a lot of tires from that factory, really a lot. So I called the local newspaper and I said, could I please speak to the editor? I'd like to know what's going on. And she asked me who I was, and I told her, and we talked. And it was great. And I had been going to that newspaper every day to get the updates on the strike because I wanted to get the real information. And I opened up the newspaper the next day and it says, noted tire industry analyst predicts closure of the Fort Wayne plant. Man, my heart jumped up in my throat. This was my first experience with media. I was in my early 30s, I think. And she used me and she used what I said. I got a retraction. It was a Knight Ridder News Service newspaper that was published on page 26 2 months later. But my point in saying this is I was really upset with the USW because they were tipping over my dog bowl. They were getting in the way of my supply. And I went through many, many trade actions where the USW was my antagonist. And then one day I woke up and I realized, yes, these people sound like communists, Marxists. They're a socialist union. But they were the last bastion protecting the sovereignty of the country. That's how magical our system is. A bunch of Marxists, socialists in a union, actually getting paid big money. They get huge money, these people. So they're not really socialists. They just act socialist. Fought to create protectionist legislation and action because they didn't want their dog bowl turned over. And if those people hadn't fought to protect steel and aluminum, we'd be way down the road from where we are to servitude and subjugation. So our system is so supernatural. The human will is so supernatural. It's free will. That's why I say if we, the people, get involved in the Republican Party, the result of that, of 200,000 American citizens fill all these empty roles. And here's what you do. You don't tell anybody what your politics are. You just say to them, I want to elect Republicans. Then you go vote. Once you're in, you vote. And you find out who are the Republicans that really believe in having a nation state. And if you're in Nebraska, you turf this Don Bacon out and send him back to the rock from which he crawled out. I think President Trump called him a grandstander. And we're seeing a lot of grandstanding and a lot of sellouts. And here in Minnesota, the Star Tribune publishes an article, and who do they interview but a guy named C. Ford Runge. He's noted as a University of Minnesota professor and trade policy expert. And he goes ahead and tells Minnesotans who read this rag how these tariff policies are just awful, going to hurt everything, just going to hurt everything. Well, this guy was born in 1953. He's a little bit older than me. let me just share with you a couple of his highlights. He was appointed as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, the United Nations Human Rights Commission in Geneva by President Carter when he was a very young man. He returned to Madison, Wisconsin, where he got his doctorate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a more globalist institution you could not find. He got that PhD in 1981. His thesis was, quote, Institutions and Common Property Externalities, the Assurance Problem in Economic Development. What is common property? That's when everybody owns the means of production. This guy's an expert communist, or an expert on communism, however you want to say it. Guess what else he's done? Boy, he just got rolling with that PhD. He went to work for, guess what? The USAID. He worked for the United States USAID. Fantastic. He worked for the National Academy of Sciences. This guy has involved himself in multilateral trade negotiations. This guy's been at the center of globalism his entire career. And when Minnesota's citizens read his quotes, they don't understand that he's pursuing a political outcome of one world government. The guy is actually on the Council for Foreign Relations, after all. Marion O'Neill, Representative 29B. Here's a message for you. Don't just talk about the 2,000 plus people that make more than the governor at the University of Minnesota. Get after the University of Minnesota. That's the head of the snake. And C. Ford, hey, if you want to come on here and school me up because you hear about this, you're more than welcome. I'm sure you knew my father. You were at the university at the exact same time. President Trump has got all kinds of trade things in the pipeline. They're getting ready to tax international shipping. He's got plan A, plan B, and plan C because President Trump knows that the British business model of slavery, drugs, and piracy, that'd be debt slavery, drugs, both legal and illegal, in the endless war, he knows that the purveyors of that philosophy are going to push back on him. He knows it. Hey, could you just play Under Drums of War number 13? Because Don Bacon is so imminently predictable.
If Ukraine falls today, Moldova will be next. Probably Georgia, maybe the Baltics. And you're going to be spending a lot more money in NATO at this point trying to protect the East Europe from Russia. China is watching what we do with Russia. And so therefore, Taiwan's being threatened. I like to be a team player. I like our team to win. But when this is a fight for the future of our party, the soul of our party. I don't like the direction it's going. As you mentioned, we are undermining the international order that America has built for 80 years. Now, I don't know if the president means to do it, but I sure perceive it going that direction. And if I don't say anything, then I feel like I'm guilty. I feel like I got to speak up and be an advocate for the core values that I believe in. And I want to be on the right side of history here.
Oh boy, what a surprise! What a surprise that is. There's Don Bacon advocating for the endless war against the Russians. This guy, well, Michael Broadcorp, I know you watch my stuff. Why don't you have him on? He's your kind of Republican. Alex Plekish, who leads the Minnesota Republican Party, and Don Bacon are the exact same person. And you all wonder why there's contention in the party. We want peace and prosperity. We do not want one world government, one world economy, one world currency. We do not want to live in debt slavery to central banks. We do not want to be hooked on drugs, both legal and illegal. We want human well-being, the politics of well-being, and we certainly don't want to send our children off to get their limbs blown off in wars of discretion so 1/10 of 1% of the population can make a ton of money selling weapons. These people are so perverse. I'm talking to you, Alex Plekish. You're perverse. Perverse! Now, I don't really have to take it to a personal level, personally, I think everybody's just fine. Personally, it's the ideas that we have to clarify and convince our fellow Republicans what Republicanism is really all about. It's really all about independence, non-involvement in foreign entanglements, self-government, self-governance. We are responsible for our own well-being. We are responsible for our own economic self-sufficiency. We're responsible for our children, for our parents. These people have broken our families apart. They have addicted millions of our fellow citizens to welfare and lives without dignity because the jobs have been exported. And then we get assholes like Steve Ratner saying the genie's already out of the bottle. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's just accept demoralization. That's who these people really are. Let's just accept being demoralized. But let's all wrap it in the flag of faith. Alex is running around talking about we're in a spiritual battle like Don Bacon for the future of our party, the soul of our party. And let's wrap it in the cloth of Christ, which is a violation of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain. You people, please, if you're Christians, if you believe in God, don't talk it, act it. Go into the parties. Our lives depend on it. The president is being battered from pillar to post from within the Republican Party. Do you all feel my anger? Do you think there's going to be any back down from the American citizens that want peace and prosperity? We are not afraid of you anymore. Up in CD7, an American citizen defeated the apparatus. In CD4, an American citizen defeated the apparatus. That's 2 down and 6 to go. If I lose, I'll be back, just like the Terminator. I'm sorry, Tanner, I'm a little bit worked up today, aren't I?
Yeah. I'm just over here. It's okay.
Am I okay?
Yeah, you're just fine.
Oh,
You're
man,
letting out what you feel.
I'm just losing it about this because I see that my party does not support my president. And then, the president sends a thing to Zelensky. They sent him the mineral draft to create some kind of security arrangement with the Ukrainians. And what does Zelensky do? He rejects it. The deal's too tough for him. They think they're going to go with the Europeans. Let's play number 14.
But at the same time that President Trump is calling for a peace deal in Ukraine, there is this parallel, separate effort to repair America's relationship with Russia. Doesn't the U.S. getting closer to Russia undercut your efforts to counter Russia?
Of course, I'm not in the room when all these talks take place, but what I'm seeing from a distance and hearing from my American colleagues, and all, including the president, whom I visited a couple of weeks ago in a very successful meeting we had in the Oval Office, and then during lunch, there is this effort to bring this war to an end. The ball clearly is in the court of the Russians. They are not moving fast enough, is my impression, including the impression I'm getting from my American interlocutors, that Russia really has to do more to bring this war to an end. The Ukrainians are reeling close to the American position. And we have to see how far the Americans can get this. But I am completely supporting that effort because this war of protection, it was unsustainable in the long term. So many people dying, so much of the Ukrainian infrastructure being damaged, cities being destroyed. This got to end.
That's Mark Rutte. He's the Secretary General of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. What a fantastic politician. When this man speaks, he speaks with authority. He's just sensational, and he lies like a rug. The Ukrainians are far from the President Trump position. They just rejected the deal. And the Europeans are doing everything they can to marshal a coalition that supports Ukraine in this ongoing forever war with the Russians, while President Trump is doing everything he can to get us out of this deadly trap. And I'm going to say again what I said in the last episode, but I'm going to do it cool. And I'm the hardest problem, the hardest challenge is to get everyday citizens, particularly officers of the Republican Party, to understand that none of this is happening by accident. We are programmed, again, we are programmed to believe with words like the genie's out of the bottle, they're kicking the can down the road, as if the people that run the deal are just acting kind of arbitrarily and, shit happens. You don't run up a $37 trillion debt by accident. It just doesn't happen. You don't go to war with the Russians by accident. The border is not simultaneously opened to millions of illegals by accident. And I'm going to call them illegals because they're not here lawfully. Most of the time I call them newcomers, but that's very tongue-in-cheek. Janet Yellen did not set up a refinance of $8 trillion this year by accident when she could have had it financed for 30 years at 1%. Tom Emmer and Kevin McCarthy did not pass a debt ceiling bill that allowed for an almost unlimited run-up of debt that didn't come due for adjudication until this year, 2025. All these things happened at the same time. The war started. But the people who passed the debt ceiling bill knew the war was going to start. That's why they suspended any arguing about the debt until 2025, January 2nd, because they believed that a Democrat was going to win. Yes, the Republican globalists were betting on a Democrat victory. And they lied to us. They lied to us at an intergalactic level. Yes, that would be Tom Emmer here from CD6 Minnesota. The greatest cuts to government spending in history. And they ran up $3 or $4 trillion of additional debt to fund that war. He knew the war was coming. It doesn't matter what he says. He knew. They took him downstairs in the basement and said, here's what we're going to do. I mean, the people that run him, the globalists that run him. And he went out and shilled for the deal and got the cash to do it. At the same time, now that we were at war with the Russians, where almost any scam could be pilled because we've been listening to Russia, Russia, Russia since 2016, this sweet old lady, this sweet old Jewish lady, Janet Yellen, looks just like my mother, stood up there in front of the American people, first as the chairman of the Fed, and then as the Secretary of the Treasury, and refinanced $8 trillion. She could have done it at 1% for 30 years. It's coming due right now. She said, I made some mistakes. I think a Yale PhD economist who ran the Fed, I made a mistake. And I'm supposed to believe that like I'm stupid because she says it's so nice. We played it on the show. Maybe we should play it again, Tanner.
Yeah.
That clip is
I
really
was pulling up pictures of her just to get a refresher what she looks like.
I mean, who's gonna argue with her? She's so old. She's so sweet. She reminds me of Norma Fredericks here in CD3. She's a wonderful Republican. We don't agree politically at all, but I will defend her because she wants a big tent. She doesn't want the apparatus to pervert who becomes a member of the party. We don't agree politically, but we agree that we need to have a big tent. And who's going to argue with Norma? Joshua Coburn did and actually threatened her. The guy's about 250. And Norma must weigh 85 pounds wringing wet. That's who these people are, bullies. Anyhow, I digress. So we have a huge debt, a huge problem with the refinance right now. right now today. The drop in equities was coming whether or not Donald Trump put on taxes or not, because the underlying uh, financial underpinnings of our country we're screwed. We're just screwed. So here's what I think they want to do. They want to pop off a couple of nukes, blame the collapse on the Russians. Everybody's locked down in their house now. Let loose all these newcomers, burn the cities down, and the very Republicans that claim they're all about self-governance and limited government will scream to be rescued by government. Scream, save me, please. I'm going to die. And then the international bankers will come in and they'll say, oh, you Americans, you spend too much money. We're going to bail you out. And what they're going to do is foreclose on the collateral, and that collateral is the republic. That is why I am so mad at the Republicans in the party that can't see it. And like they said on The Matrix, hey, nobody can show it to you. You got to see it for yourself. So if we're going to keep watching CNN, and if we're going to keep reading the Star Tribune, and if we're going to keep watching Fox News and Alpha News, we're never going to see it. And that's why it matters what news you listen to. Find the news that matters. Here's some news that matters. Could you please play number 16?
And I'd like to welcome my friend Antonio Gracias to the stage. I think so. Does it work? I can give you mine. Does it work? It'll be okay. I mean, Buzz Aldrin's still alive, and he went past the belts.
It'll work. Is this working? Yeah, it's on now, yeah.
There you go. So, Antonio, can you tell us what you... Antonio's helping out with the Social Security. So just trying to review Social Security, where you may have heard that we found 20 million dead people marked as alive in the Social Security database. This is so crazy. And then you'll notice there's a strange trend here where how many Social Security numbers were issued. Do you want to?
Yeah. So let me tell you what happened here. We started at the top of the system.
You want to talk about a lot of maybe?
We started at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all the fraud was. And there's a lot of great people there that showed us really a lot of waste. And so that came up with a big list of stuff that we're working on. You've heard some of that already. But this is what jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister are all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed this in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on. Yeah. So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people. I have been from D.C. to Social Security offices to the border to track this down, and very good people have helped us along the way. I want to thank them.
Yeah.
This number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid, and they'll give you an asylum case. You'll get an interview, then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border, they do what's called a release from your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, a notice to appear, which to appear to judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people, okay? So what happens then? Once you're in the country and you got asylum through one of these pathways, and we mapped the whole thing out, you can apply for a work document. You file a 765, it's the work form. You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
This is worth just reiterating. It's not people sometimes think that under the Biden administration that he was simply asleep at the switch. He wasn't asleep, they weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape.
Look, if I hadn't seen this myself, I'm not sure I'd have believed it. I went through it myself and mapped it, and Elon is right. This is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1.3 million of them already on Medicaid, as an example. We've gone through, on every benefit program we went through, we found groups from this particular group of people, this 5.5 million people, in those benefit programs. And then what was really, really disturbing us was why. We're asking ourselves why. Right. And so we actually just took a sample and looked at voter registration records. And we found people here registered to vote. In this population, yes.
And who did vote?
And we found some by sampling that actually did vote. And we have referred them to prosecution at the Homeland Security Investigation Service.
Yeah.
Already. That is already happening.
You know, when I said earlier in the podcast that none of this was an accident, and that my biggest challenge here in CD3 is to convince my fellow Republicans that these things are a plan. Let me just read you something that just came in from a fellow CD3 Republican, just came while we were here. Trump is a terrible executive. Big man-child will cause more damage, likely lose the midterms. Ooh. He did not win the last election by a landslide. He's an egomaniac. I'm so sad. He's talking to me. You can write and do shows all about trade theory, on and on and on. But with a total knucklehead like this running the circus, it's all meaningless. We have to deal with the here and now and with the tactics that work and do not blow everything up along the way. It's very simple. Trump is a knucklehead and has no ability to reason or exercise patience. That's from a Republican here in CD3. That's where I live. This person does not understand that there's a plan to destroy the sovereignty of the United States. He thinks everything's going to work out. He's my age. He grew up in the 70s, as I did. It always ends up American. He does not believe that the future of our freedom is hanging by a thread, and what we do as a people is going to determine the outcome. He's advocating for a kinder, gentler, more liberal Republican Party run by RINOs like Don Bacon and Alex Plekish. Doesn't mean I dislike him. I don't dislike this person. In fact, I like him. He just doesn't get it yet. He didn't wake up. And I'll say again, at these meetings, the meetings that I met him at and spent time with them, I would ask people, did you vote for George W. Bush? And these little hands would go like this. Get your hands up if you voted for George W. Bush. I did. Who voted for George H.W. Bush? I did. Somewhere around the weapons of mass destruction, I realized my government was completely on its own path, that the social compact between the governed and the governors had been obliterated because there was no longer any search for truth. It was whatever lie worked. And the lie today is, it's all about the price of goods. Oh my God. Our 401ks. Oh my God. You know, if you don't take your money out, you don't lose any money. Prices go up and prices go down. We have been living in an illusion. And here's the illusion. For those of you that don't get it, The reason you've made so much money with those index funds is because every year since 2000 and Bush, the Fed has put $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion into the economy. Go back and look at what the national debt was when George Bush II was elected and was inaugurated in 2001. There's been about $30 trillion pumped in 24 years. You take that $30 trillion out and your stocks did not go up. You're not such a genius. Your index fund would be in the toilet without the Fed putting in that money. And it only benefits 10% of the citizens. This is all for the benefit of 10%. 50% of the citizens are living week to week, month to month. So for my friend that sent me that very virulent anti-Trump text, when they come to your house with pitchforks and torches in your gated community and steal everything you have, it's because you were not willing to listen to the people as a Republican Party officer. This battle is really going on in the courts now because, we have three co-equal branches of government, and many of these things are going into the courts, like the challenge to the trade authority by the new Civil Liberties Union. There's been a tremendous pushback about the immigration issues. The Supreme Court just ruled this week 5-4 to lift the stay on the administration's efforts to deport violent gang members. Tren de Aragua. Yes, they are going to be able to deport them again now. And guess what? 5-4. I'm going to read the names of the 4 that dissented and wanted to continue to prevent the president from deporting these violent criminals. They'd be Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown, Jackson, and Amy Coney Barrett. Those 4 wanted to prevent the president from protecting me. Okay? Very interesting. So while there is an effort now to show how the Biden administration gave Social Security numbers to the newcomers, and of course, you could be here on a status and get a Social Security number. For example, if you're on an H-1B visa, or if you get married to an American citizen and you're due benefits, yes, there are some lawful ways that a non-citizen could obtain a Social Security number. But that's not what Doge discovered, and that's not what President Trump is highlighting, trying to get these people out of the country because they're here to change the nature of the body politic. And let's just look at how the Democrat globalist jumps up. Please play number 18.
To be clear, undocumented folk contribute approximately $100 billion in taxes. They pay into Social Security and they don't get to draw down on it. So stop, again, allowing them to divide us and to demonize them.
There you go. There's the globalist. Hey. American citizens, hey, you know what? Let's not be divided by the invading army. Let's not be divided with them. Let's unify. Let's not be getting down on them because they kick in $100 billion. Oh, man. And there was a reason that came out just when it did, because it was related to the Doge uncovering of the Social Security fraud perpetrated under the Biden administration. Where are you, Pam Bondi? Please, Pam Bondi, indictments, Kash Patel. If we don't indict these people and have a hearing and see the dispositive evidence and convict people, I'm going to have to turn feral on this deal because there's a lot of allegations. As they used to say, where's the beef? Where's the beef? Well, okay, here's some beef. Please play number 19.
Breaking news for you now from France. A French judge rules that the far-right leader Marine Le Pen is barred from seeking public office with immediate effect. Let's bring in our Europe correspondent, Adam Parsons. Adam, we just saw Marine Le Pen leaving court. What more do we know?
Yeah, well, we had anticipated that she would be deemed ineligible to run for public office. That has now been confirmed. There was a long consideration by the president of the tribunal in Paris as to whether or not that should be a provisional ban, dependent upon the outcome of an inevitable appeal. But the tribunal has decided that no, she should be banned from running for public office as of now. Marine Le Pen, the leader of the hard right National Rally Party, has now walked out of the court. What we don't know, and what is absolutely crucial, Gareth, is how long this ban is for. The first person to have just had their complete sentence announced is a woman called Catherine Grisset. She has been given a 2-year ban from a public office. That may be an indication that Marine Le Pen may get a longer ban. We simply don't know. The court is well aware that it is facing a unique set of circumstances because Marine Le Pen was the favourite to win the 2027 French presidential election. That is an enormously consequential process. Think of the influence Emmanuel Macron has had on not just on France but on Europe, on the world, in his term as French president. So Marine Le Pen was favourite to get that job, just narrowly the favourite. And here we have a court deciding whether or not she should be banned from running for the presidency. That is a weighty decision that has come onto their shoulders, and they have said that she is now banned from running for public office. But as things stand, we don't know for how long. It is a question of waiting for these sentences to be announced. Marine Le Pen has left the room. Clearly, whether that is a politically symbolic action, whether that is the action of somebody who is simply enormously frustrated, whether they are angry, whether potentially Marine Le Pen now worries that her long political career is about to come crumbling around her ears. All of those emotions are going on. And of course, there will be, and there is, a lively discussion at the moment going on in France as to the democratic merit of allowing a court to decide whether or not Marine Le Pen should be eligible to run in 27 or should not. That is something that has already been talked, and you have to say from left and right you are getting various opinions. There are unlikely bedfellows here, left-wing MPs saying, I don't like Marine Le Pen, but I think she should be allowed to run for office. Others saying, if you're deemed to be a criminal, then of course you shouldn't be allowed to run for president. So we await the full details.
Thank you. Marine Le Pen is leading the nationalist movement in France. She's banned now, we know, for 5 years, even though she's the front runner for the next presidential election.
She was banned for what crimes?
She was accused and convicted of embezzling money from the European Union. She had staffers that worked for her political party that actually were also working for the European Union. And the court convicted her and many other people for using European Union funds to pay political staffers in her party. Her contention was that those staffers were doing work for the European Union. I wasn't there. I don't know. There's an old KGB leader named Beria in the Soviet Union who had a very famous line, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. So, you can convict anybody of anything if you really want to get down to it, because these courts are not just. The people are losing confidence in the court system because the lawyers that are the judges are materialists without sacred honor. Our system is breaking down. Here in the Republican Party of Minnesota, the leader of the party, Alex Plekish, is not acting in a Republican way. He's acting like a communist. He's trying to predetermine the outcome of elections. And I'm not making it up. He's actually writing it down. He actually sent out a directive or a press release to the Republican Party members and to the entire state that said that the Republican Party was going to support Michelle Fischbach in CD7, even though there's challenges to her up there. We're not even into the election season, and they're already picking winners and losers. Alex is going around the state promoting a guy named Adam Schwartzy, a Nikki Haley supporter, a Forever War participant. And that's not, in my opinion, your role, Alex. Your role is not to put your thumb on the scale. And if I am elected to the chair of CD3, I will certainly not put my thumb on the scale. I'll go anywhere, anytime to promote Republicanism and bring new people into the party, something that Mr. Sutter, the current chair of CD3, did not want. He told me he did not want more Republicans. He just wanted more work from the Republicans we had. That's why I affectionately call Randy, Mr. We don't need any more Republicans. But I believe we do. I believe we need every American citizen, every Minnesotan citizen here in Minnesota participating in one party or the other, because this is a throwdown for the future of the nation. Are we going to give up our sovereignty to one global economy, free trade, as Amy Klobuchar would promote? Or are we going to stand up for having an independent, self-sufficient nation with an educated, just, and moral citizenry? I don't want to live in a demoralized country. That sucks, because everybody lies to everybody all the time. And I don't like that. I was sitting in my office this past week, and I got an email from a delegate here in CD3, and she shared with me a letter she sent to Alex Plekish, which helped me understand some of these things. She wrote and shared with me, I replied to you to your last weekend's updates, but you didn't respond to me. How nice. She's only a member of the party. Ignore her, right? I see the reply email is in info@MinGOP, so I added chair@MinGOP.com. Perhaps that will help you get my messages and respond to my concerns. This week, I'd like to say that your statements about being poised to win big in 2026 is the same thing party leadership has been saying for years. Remember the red wave coming in 2022? That never happened. Please don't use that language when it appears your focus is the same as it's always been. Example, recruiting strong electable candidates early. I was at the mixer you held in Bloomington 2 weeks ago. You made several inappropriate comments in your speech that night. First, you highlighted Stan Hamilton as one of the candidates running for CD3 chair. You said no one else has declared. I have an email from David Penn stating that he had declared his intention to run for chair. I declared it right away, Alex. You know that. I know both Hamilton and Penn, and I'm weighing my options. After you called Stan out by name, I am more inclined to vote for David Penn. If you just give him a shot that you clearly don't want him to have. The same goes for the U.S. Senate candidates. You called out Adam Schwartzy and raved about him being your friend, a fellow Marine, the most qualified, etc. I believe as the leading executive of the Republican Party of Minnesota, it is inappropriate for you to share your biased opinion of the candidates for any race, especially singling out only one. You said no one else had declared, which is untrue. Royce White declared his intention to run again the day after the election last fall. You are biased, and you let your opinion color your speech in order to unite the party around your chosen candidates. It is up to the people to decide which candidate is most qualified, and I, for one, am tired of the party telling me who I should consider. Royce White made a very good showing against Amy Klobuchar, even as a rookie candidate with a disorganized newbie campaign. I was on it. Thank you for the criticism. Well deserved. And I'm going to tell you why the campaign was disorganized. Royce White tried to work with the party to unify it. I was there. The party sent in chaos agents that destroyed the campaign. When we got those chaos agents identified and out of the party or out of the campaign, when we've identified the chaos agents and got them out of the campaign worked like a machine. It just took a long time to do it. I'm very sorry. We tried to unify. We tried. And the party hired Michael Broadcorp and paid with donor money to trash the endorsed candidate. This cannot be forgotten. And this thing, Alex, that you're doing blaming David Hand, that's a scam. Many, many people knew that Michael Broadcorp was the person on the payroll because I knew about it right in the middle of the campaign. People were coming up to me and saying, do you know Michael Broadcorp is working for the Min GOP and they're paying him to trash Royce White? I mean, I knew about it. Lots of people knew about it. So David Hand falling on the grenade for the party is just part of the apparatus. This Mutt and Jeff thing you played with David Hand, Alex, it's not fooling me. Nothing happens by accident. Not in politics. I think President Roosevelt said that, as a matter of fact. Nothing happens by accident in politics. Anyhow, this goes on and on. This goes on and on. Imagine what Royce could have done with a little support from the Min GOP. He beat Yukon Joe Frazier and got the endorsement at the state convention and again beat him in the August primary. And still there was little or no assistance from the party. No, it wasn't little or no assistance. The party paid money to undermine Royce White's campaign. Please, CD3 delegates, if you're voting this Saturday, recognize electing the people who seek failure is what you'll be doing if you elect people that the apparatus supports. It's just that simple. These people are running their own game, as all globalists are doing right to this second, right to this minute. Yes, they're all seeking, either consciously or unconsciously, the end of this nation. Or as President Trump said on that airplane, you can go back and look on it in the last podcast, under President Biden, this country was dead. Yet the Republican Party in Minnesota paid to promote the candidacy of Harris Waltz. You get this now? Are we getting it? Could we wake up? Could we wake up from our slumber before we find ourselves in internment camps? Because you Republicans, you soft Republicans that really don't want to get into the fight, quit the party, and let me tell you why. You are identified on a list of Republicans. If you think that when this really goes bad, that they're going to spare you because you were for Ukraine, Joe Frazier, what's the difference? A man to be forgotten. If you think that because you supported moderates, that they're not going to come down on you like a ton of bricks, I'll just tell you the Dustin Gragey story. Dustin Gragey's not a Trump guy. Dustin Gragey is not a nationalist. Dustin Gragey is a paid influencer, a clickbait seeker. That's who he is. And so he has gone from Ron DeSantis over to Donald Trump. Okay, great, Dustin. So Dustin did such a good job of impersonating a hardcore patriot that he was swatted by the left. Don't you get it? There's no safety in collaboration. The only safety is standing up for republicanism. So the people that run for office and don't want to put an R by their names, they're not Republicans. When are we going to get that this doesn't work? That this is not safety, this is not success, and it's not victory. If we're going to have victory, we're going to first clarify what it is to be a Republican, and then we're going to find out who salutes that idea. That would be the idea of who? Honest Abraham Lincoln. That's what we're doing here. We're reclaiming the honesty of Abraham Lincoln. You know, in a lot of states, they don't have the Lincoln-Reagan dinner. They've dropped the Reagan. They just have the Lincoln dinner. Because people are figuring out that Ronald Reagan was a globalist. Now, at his time, that might have been a good experiment. But the experiment has failed. We are in a new moment in history. I want to unify this state. I will work with every Republican. It doesn't matter to me if we don't agree about some of the issues. That's not my job to turf you out if you're in. That's the people's job. If I'm elected, I have to represent everyone and try to coalesce an organization that serves everybody. Well, the first step in that is for me to serve as the leader, the people that I'm working for. You don't do what I tell you. I'm working for you. I'm working tirelessly for you. So the first idea here is to create some kind of organizational structure which accomplishes a path that leads to actual victory. Then we're going to have straight up elections and straight up, how do I say this? I want the citizens in the party to practice politics. Not like Alex Plekish, who told me we don't do that here. That's why affectionately I call him Mr. We Don't Do That Here. We want to have a full-throated, ongoing discussion because we matter. We're the citizens. We're not stamp lickers and door knockers. We're self-governing citizens of a great republic. The entire deal revolves around what we do at what they call the grassroots. You know, they call us the grassroots because they walk on us. We are the sovereigns of this nation, not a doormat to be stomped on. That's the first thing that has to be ended. And it doesn't matter if you're to the left or the right within the party. Think about what I'm saying. They walk on all of us equally. Why are you putting up with that? Don't. Vote for the people, because the people are coming. They came in 7. They've come in 4. They're coming. As long as we protract this fight, we will lose. If we want to win, we will unify behind the message of republicanism. Let us discover it, let us practice it, and let us spread it from sea to shining sea. This is David Penn, your host, thanking you for joining tonight. Tanner, thank you for coming in and recording this.
Of course.
I look forward to seeing those of you who are delegates to the CD3 convention this Saturday, the 12th of April. And let us move forward into this new republicanism. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everybody.